Hey everyone, welcome to this puppy themed episode 83. Episode 83 of the Penciled In Podcast, the dog edition, with Jason Crosby, who is a full-time artist as of 18 years. So Lindsey and we are here to learn from you. Oh my God. Hello. Hello.
All right, I'll put it
Welcome
down.
to the show, Jason.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I can't bring my puppy along. He's too big to get up the stairs. And he's old. We've all got old dogs, haven't we? So Jason, whereabouts are you located?
I'm in Augusta, Georgia. So you've probably maybe heard of the Masters golf tournament, the big golf. So that I live a few miles from the Masters golf course.
Awesome. And how did you first get into art? Did you always draw as a kid? Were there any particular franchises that you really loved?
I'm sure it's most like any other artist drew when I was little. Probably the earliest I remember was Mad Magazine, Cracked Magazine. Even like Cartoons was a magazine centered around hot rods and cars. So those type of publications, way more than superhero type stuff. It was the goofy jokes, and that's what got me into art.
Humor drawings.
Yes.
Same magazine, they always had funny stuff in there, didn't they? So did you use those as reference for your own doodles when you were young, or?
I would even draw my own Mad Magazine stories. I would find whatever TV show was on, and then make a pun on the title, and pencil my little story. And so I remember the TV show in the 80s, The Greatest American Hero. So it's kind of a goofy superhero show. And I remember I was like, all right, what about The Greatest American Zero? And I would draw my little Mad Magazine story. And I remember Mad actually came out with that same title a few months later. And I'm like, oh, it must be amazing. I had a great idea. Mad Magazine used it. So yeah, use those as reference, inspiration.
They say that the minute you have a great idea, somebody else has had it as well, and you have to hurry up and do it.
Yeah, and ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. Ideas are easy. It's the execution that really makes the idea, I guess. And so
1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, isn't it?
Exactly. Jack Davis was in Mad Magazine. He's always been one of my biggest inspirations. And, I knew his art before I knew his name. And turns out we ended up going to the same college. Of course, he's back in the 1940s. So got to meet him multiple times over the years. And, I knew his art well before I knew him, so that was neat. Got to know him and meet him.
That's amazing. Meeting your heroes. That's great. So did you go on to study art after school?
I started in graphic design. So I started art not really knowing where the focus, I'm like, okay, just art, general art. And then I was like, okay, I kind of need a job too. I get that whole money thing is important. So I focused in graphic design. After school, worked in an ad agency for 5 years roughly, and I would draw at night. And so my day job was mostly print, magazines, logos, anything the salesperson brought to me. They would say, all right, we need this brochure for whatever company. So, and then I would draw at night. I would slowly try to build up my client base of just my own personal work. And there was lots of 24-hour days then, because it was work for the ad agency from 8 to 5 and then do my job from overnight.
That's pretty impressive.
So, that must have built up so many skills for you, though, being able to design logos and, a lot of extra skills in your belt.
It really wasn't like, even now, a recent job I did we were just talking about the Mars motors, designing it honestly felt just as natural as drawing, because I'm like, all right, I got the dimensions, I got to know I got to do the bleed when I set it up for the printer, so they I knew exactly how to do the file and on back and the fonts, so the years I did that did help because I still get, like that job, they still ask me, it's not just about the drawing now because I'm like, okay, I can design it and lay it out and do the logo, whatever you need. And so I do get hired to do using my design still years later.
All those skills that you learned in, for designing and all that stuff, has it changed a lot over the years, really? Or the basics, do they stay the same?
Honestly, basics in design and art are always going to be the same. Sketching, ideas, brainstorming, technology changes, the programs would change, but just the design skills, having an eye, learning where to make the eye flow when you read something, all that's going to be the same, is no matter what. So a lot of those just core skills are the same. Technology, I'm definitely behind on technology, but just those skills aren't going to change.
So after working in graphic design, how did you get into working in art also? What was your first doorway?
Well, I had to make the leap. It was 2005, and my now wife, we were dating at the time, and she was like, she needed to do a residency halfway across the country for 1 year. And I was like, okay, I can try to find a design job for less than a year. Or I'm like, okay, now I can finally take the plunge and see if I could make freelance work. And so that's what finally made me start full-time illustration, was knowing just the big move, not trying to find a job, work for a company. What am I going to tell them? I'll be here for 6 months and then I'm going to leave, So that's what made me just take the plunge for full-time freelance. And then, in the beginning, it was absolutely hard. It was, I had my few clients, and I even remember I had a grocery store job, just whatever I can have some money, and then still slowly build up my client base.
What would you say is the most important skill that you used in order to build your freelance career? What do you think was?
The hunger. no. No. I mean, really, it was like once I decided to do it, there was no going back. So it was a dry, and it was like make this always singing postcards. Back then it was postcards, it was always just, hey, I'm here, hire me please. And it was constantly promoting, constantly just putting my name out there. And once you got a job, do your best so they'll hire you again.
What was the first company you worked for then?
Oh man, a lot of these companies, I had while I still had my design job, and a lot of, they just kept hiring me once I went freelance. And I can't even remember, almost 20 years ago at this point, my first one, no clue. A lot of my early jobs were all print related, editorial magazines. I did a lot of that in the beginning. I didn't get into cards until about 2013. So my first almost decade of illustration was all print related, magazines, editorial jobs, and things.
So
like
you
that.
spend all your time practicing your art skills after your day jobs?
Beginning, it was, at agency all day and then drawing at night. And then once I went freelance, it was mostly editorial work. So a magazine would, wherever, in the Midwest, Kansas, would say, okay, I have a story on this. I would read the story and then come up with the imagery for the story. So, and then my background helped because I knew I knew how to set it up with the bleed and get them the exact file they needed. And so I did that for almost a decade, editorial illustration.
Do you still do it?
I don't promote it, so I don't get many anymore. And so it's been a long time, honestly, because there's plenty of talented people, and you always got to kind of promote yourself and go, hey, here I am, hire me again. And a lot of the art directors, they find their favorite artists. And so, a lot of the art directors I worked with 20 years ago probably aren't at the magazine anymore. And so, a new art director, they're going to hire their own new artist, and you just got to constantly promote,
Do you find that magazines are going out of business, or do you think that it's constant?
A lot of them are just and so I haven't promoted in years, and it's still fun. It would still be fun, but like you said, a lot of the magazines that I work for, I don't even know if they're in business. And then a lot of the smaller magazines, once they go to online, what are the ad sales? What's their budget now? And I don't know if a lot of the magazines have the budget to pay an artist anymore. So
yeah, that's a good point. Apparently your bigger companies and stuff, that they're going towards AI now as well, just for quick, easy artwork, and they don't have to pay anyone, and that's terrible for people who work in that area, like commercial artists. So how did you get into sketch cards? How did you find them, and what was your first kind of break into that?
So 2013, Topps was coming out with a Mars Attacks set, and I saw the set. I'm like, all right, that'd be fun to draw aliens, Martians, and so I did just a drawing for fun, and I think I might have posted it on the Facebook page, the Mars Attacks Facebook page. So anyway, they reached out and asked would I like to participate, and so that's how I got started. And I don't know, much of the last decade has been card related at this point.
That's great that they hunted you as well.
Yeah, I mean, loved your work. Out, though, it's constantly like, here's one of my drawings, and then they're like, oh, I like it. So promotion's kind of part of it too. You got to constantly put yourself out there.
So what sets have you, what themes and stuff like that have you worked on within the sketch card world?
I guess most of the largest ones, Star Wars, Garbage Pail Kids, Mars Attack, all stuff through Upper Deck. Most of the smaller publishers too, I've done sets for. And that was a lot of those were in the years ago. Now that when I became full-time Mr. Mom, and then a lot of those sets I had to cut back. So I don't do that many sets anymore. Really, I haven't done a Star Wars set in 8 years now.
Ooh. Okay.
I think I did every Star Wars set from 2013 to like 2016, and then at that point, my oldest was 2, and I'm like, okay, something has to give. I can't get rid of my daughter, so I have to get rid of the cards.
Something's got to give somewhere. There's only so much time in the day, isn't there?
Exactly.
We were talking earlier about the Mars motors, and I was very impressed, because not only did you do the artwork, you did all the design for those cards. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that one. And that opportunity was 2015. We called it the Mars Superstars. So it was a sports card set, and I had Martians playing human sports and made them gruesome. So you had the baseball player sliding into like a bloody torso, and so. But yeah, they let me. I drew the images. I designed the cards like traditional sports cards, and then the backs as well. I designed them, and they let me write the backs, but Daniel Anderson, a friend of mine, probably did 95% of the writing. So he's credited on the set too. So yeah, they let me draw, design, and write the cards. So that was the first time in 2015. And then the Mars Motors came out maybe 2020. And so same thing, I did the logo for the set. They let me draw it, and the Mars Motors really didn't have much text on back, so it didn't have much to write on that.
Okay.
Amazing. I sort of touched on this earlier, and I was questioning you as to whether you were going to produce any of your own sets, because having all those skills in place that not everybody has, it would be possible for you, but talk us through that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I would love to one day, sure. A lot of it is just the time it would go into, and if am I going to license a property, or am I going to come up with my own idea? But yeah, I've got a few things actually in the background about trying to license some stuff, but that, who knows, may or may not. It's going to come down to money, as everything does about that. But yeah, one day my own set, I would love to. I'm actually a Hollywood agent who, I mean, it's mostly horror actors. I've got in touch with him, and he wants me to design a set for the clients that he's representing. So doing that now. So doing, a client doing the card so he can, when they go to conventions, that they can say, give it away to people. Yeah, designing that now, drawing the clients, and I do the back, whatever bio they want on the back of the card. So hopefully maybe in a year, he's got a pretty big client base.
You cut out a little bit there. So you've designed the cards, and they're going to be taking them to Comic-Con for those actors to sign and hand out.
Yes,
that's such a good idea, because it'll help promote.
And he was like, "Yeah, great idea," and so do it. And so that's what I'm working on.
I've considered that myself, because I do some Comic-Cons, and the actors, they take big prints to sign.
Yeah.
But to get people interested in collecting cards, it'd be great if they had some little cards they could sign as well. And I really like that.
And there'll be a new art. A lot of the actors, they just have the exact same screen capture of whatever movie still, sign it, and everybody has seen that image. And so when you do your art, and it's something unique that so it's not just the standard JPEG screen capture.
Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like what Lindsey might have wanted to say is that it also helps promote the hobby.
Yep.
Which is cool.
So yeah, it's something not just a photograph. It actually is a card, and yeah, very sure.
I feel like, kids are kind of losing the passion. I mean, they used to love collecting cards, even up to about 10 years ago. But recently they just seem to be falling away, don't they? So I've really wanted to try and do something to get kids interested in them again. Because they were getting banned from taking them to school. You used to take them to school, trade them with your friends, and that ended up getting banned because they're getting fights over them. And it just kind of didn't help. So I'd like to ask you now a little bit about what mediums you use and the techniques you do to create your art.
Most everything I do is a brush right in front of my face. So I have so many different size brush pens, from thick brush to really super fine brush. But everything's ink. And then most of the cards I do, if that's what you're referring to, I'll color it with markers. Just it's quick and easy. The comics I did recently are the same thing. It's ink on board. I still do traditional ink on board, scanned, and then I did color in Photoshop just due to the timeline. I mean, I did the penciling, inking, and color for the comics, 21 pages in 5 weeks. So it was everything. So
wow.
There was no coloring by hand. There was none of that. It was ink, pencil inking, and then immediately Photoshop coloring. I think I got some of those pages here. Let's see.
No, I'd love to see some.
Yeah, it was, just.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So yeah,
5 weeks to do all that.
5 weeks for the entire issue, pencil, inks, and color. So all that's Photoshop color. There's no way I could color it with watercolors or markers.
You were talking a little bit before about how you, when you were designing some of the cards for, I'm not sure which set it was, but you actually drew all the words, the letters by hand, I think. Is that what I understood?
Here's a set that this is just for me for fun, that I'm a horror set. So yeah, a lot of ruler, and it's the blank. It's one of my own sketch cards, just a personal card. So everything's pencils and rulers, and
Well, so you don't excuse me. So you don't print the letter in and trace it. You do it all.
Now sometimes I may Or if it's a really detailed, I'll do a flip, I'll kind of a rub, just so I can see exactly where to go. This, for some of them that has a lot of fine curves, yeah, I'll transfer over, kind of a rub, you know what I mean? Just so I can know exactly where to go. But
yeah, it looks so neat and professional. I'm in awe of that because I'm terrible at lettering, anything like that.
And a lot of times when I do it takes longer to do that than draw the characters. And so when somebody contacts me for commission, I'll say, do you want with fonts and lettering or without? Because the price is going to be absolutely different because it's about double the time to when I start doing the lettering. So I can do a portrait or I can do a portrait with lettering. So it's a big time difference.
Oh, it's such a special, unique thing. It looks amazing. Sorry, go on, Ingrid.
You actually have done absolutely everything in the publishing printing thing. You could actually design a set from A to Z if you had to. Is that correct?
If I had to, yeah. I guess I sort of have, never a major, like I didn't do the entire Margin text. They let me do little chase sets, it's like a 9-card.
I mean, you could, if you had to, for yourself, for instance, you could actually do the entire thing on your own. It would be,
wow. Set it up, however, I would contact the printer and say, how large is your printer? How many wide can I make the file? You know what I mean? So how to set up the exact, so I would send them the exact file, what they needed to, all they would have to do is run it and then cut it.
Do you have a favorite part of all that process? Like, is there something you prefer to do, something you can't stand to do, or do you just like the whole thing that it's all different?
Yeah, I know. I think I like when the multiple parts come together. When I have the drawing, and then when I design the back and the drawing fit, and I'm like, I think I like when it all comes together.
That's particular.
Just when I did that, so that's the funnest part. 99% of the time I'm only doing a drawing, for a project, and so they take my drawing and do whatever they put it in their template. So I think the funnest part is if I do get that chance when I do get to draw, design, and even write with one of my friends helped Daniel. So it's fun when all that comes together. That's the best
Have you
part.
thought about ever doing, because a lot of us are using Kickstarter now to produce our own sets. Have you ever thought, even though you're strapped for time, have you ever thought like maybe producing a little 9-card set and then adding to it each Kickstarter or something like that?
Yeah, I have. I think it's what we were talking earlier. I think I just need to take the leap. You know what I mean? Like I finally need to just say, all right, it's not going to happen by itself. If I just... So
I just want to see what you create, because I'm sure you can create fantastic characters on your own with the amount of creativity you've got and your skills. I think it would be ace. Like,
yeah, I just need to take that plunge and finally set aside time. Like you said, just like, all right, this next 6 months is going to be my own set, whatever I do. So
it really sucks that we need time to do stuff.
It's true. And it has gotten a little easier for me. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. And so the last few years, I was full-time Mr. Mom, now that my 6-year-old is finally in school, and it has gotten easier. So maybe a little more time now. So, because several, like when I was doing those comic books, it was then during COVID, of course, everybody, it was them all day, and I would do my job at night. I would put the family to bed, and at 8, 9, and then draw until I did more all-nighters in my 30s and 40s than I did as a teenager. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Like literally, then but it's gotten easier.
Oh, what do you see for yourself for the future? Do you have a particular direction you'd like to go, or are you just taking as it comes?
I would like to say I have a direction, but whatever falls in my lap. Like the comic, they contacted me. Someone recommended me, and then Dynamite emailed out of the blue and was like, "Hey, you want to do a comic book?" And I was like, "Well, I've never drawn a comic before in my life." And they said, "Okay, I trust the person who recommended you. Here's the script. Draw a page or two, and then tell me if you want to do it." So, give me. I had a few days. I drew the pages, sent them back, and then they said go. So whatever falls in my lap, really, and so the comic books were almost 2 years of work, and hopefully, fingers crossed, there's more of that lawyers and licensors and whatever, the money people.
You're liking
so
you enjoy that?
Yeah, I actually much prefer drawing larger. Like I do. I'm more comfortable with the brush pens, especially I can like the lines flow quicker, where cards get tedious, and they're small and my eyes are old, and so yeah, that's tedious. I much prefer larger drawings. And so if I draw something for fun, it's probably going to be more of a 12 by 18 board rather than, a 2.5 by 3.5 card.
I say the only bonus with doing sketch card size is quicker. It's more stressful, but personally I find it quicker. When we've been doing the Kickstarters, we've found that if you do the original artwork on sketch card size rather than bigger, you can sell all the original sketch cards you've done along with the set. What I'm doing now, I'm doing a load of 5x7s, and like you said, it's time. I'm worried that I've only got a couple of months to do it. I'm not very far along, so it's go time now to get that ready. But yeah, like
there are pluses and minuses to doing the larger ones and the smaller ones, and
yeah, and it's what you prefer as an artist. And I'm more comfortable drawing a little larger, and I would, if that's just how I'm more comfortable, and especially with how I draw, it's less little fine pens. It's more, I'd rather do the brush. So
brushes.
What brand of brushes are they?
I have experimented with them all, and so I mean, like this one. I mean, the cheapest ones would be the Pentel, just the fat bro. I mean, it's nothing fancy, and those are only maybe $5 each. But then I even have multiple, like Japanese, $20-$30. Some of the nicer ones that they don't bleed. I can do a really, really fine line and they won't bleed. And so it's the hardest part is finding the right combination the cardstock is nice. The brush doesn't bleed. I can do the markers on top and it doesn't make the pen bleed. And sometimes I buy the same brand and it works differently the next time I buy it. So
I was going to ask which one was the best so far to date, but I guess if they don't work the same.
Yeah, no, they may not even work the same. Like this, I really like this Kuretake pen, and I've been buying it for years, and I don't know if they changed the ink up because I bought some a few months ago, and I'm trying to do really thin lines, and then I go back with my marker and it bleeds, and I'm like, oh. So I don't know if they changed the ink up inside or, yeah, it changes. It can change. So I've experimented with them all.
What was your favored surface that you mentioned? Do you use Bristol board or?
Well, on cards.
On if you were going to do a pleasure piece just for you.
Well, yeah, if it's just the standard Bristol board for me, illustration board, the cards, it really is a big difference between the cheaper sets with the cardstock compared to, I don't know, the Topps Masterworks. I'll just throw out, those are super nice. I can do fine lines. There's no bleed. But some of the cheaper stocks, I even tell people, like, hey, give me a commission and I want all the texts and fonts. And I'm like, I can't do it because as soon as I start, the ink will bleed. And I really can't get the fine logos that you can on nicer stock on set.
Oh, I absolutely love Masterworks. I'd love to know where they get that from.
there's several, like I try to, if someone asks me to do that style of card, I try to only do it on the nicer stock just because of the technical issues, and not
Mm. I wish a lot of these companies would understand that the better stock that they give you, the better job you can do and quicker. Like they want quick now, and if they give you the right stock like Masterworks, you can do it. Like I could do a full color set in like 4 days, like 33 cards, and make them really nice if they give you the right stock.
Yeah, there's been several one set in particular. I just returned. It was the stock was so bad that I would try to ink and then it would bubble and it wouldn't dry on the stock, and it had a kind of a glossy.
Oh, and it slides around. What are you supposed to do?
I'm just like, I'm not even going to do it. You know what I mean? It's not going to turn out good. And so and so there's
frustration on a stick that is just terrible.
Yeah. So companies, if I guess they have probably well, sometimes it's just an accident by the printer. The printer could have screwed up, and other times the company they don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work.
There's probably a bit of cost cutting going on, and they don't realize that how much worse it's going to make things. They just think, I'll save a bit of money, but
save money and get a cheap I'm sure.
So do you think you will still work for some companies, or are you slowly phasing that out?
I've been phasing it out for years now, but I slowly, like I haven't done a Star Wars set in 8 years. A lot of that is, when Lucasfilm took more of a direct control over top sketch cards, it was 2016, the new movies were coming out, and then they came in with all the new rules, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out. So, it's no longer fun, when they were like, we want exact portraits, repeat images, screen captures only. And I'm like, yeah, it's no fun anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
You work for smaller companies?
Stop with Star Wars. Over the years, was it Brazian? I did a Cryptozoic set DC. So I have worked for smaller companies over the years, and I still do Garbage Pail Kids. A few of the higher end Marvel sets through Upper Deck. So I'll do masterpieces or some of their, I don't do all the movie sets they'll come out with. They come out with every Marvel movie, they'll come out with a card set. So I don't do those, but I'll try to do their, maybe once every year or two, they come out with their high end set, and I'll do those now still.
Well, that's cool. So if Lindsey and I asked you to work on a set for us on good cardstock, maybe you'd give us a go.
Sure, and I've done several, and I've got another smaller set somewhere here that I'm working on through somebody. I probably shouldn't tell you what it is now. I don't know if he's announced.
But don't reveal anything.
But yeah, okay, I'll do send me cards. I'll do those, and I no longer do the big whatever tops. Here's 100 cards or 80 cards. I no longer do that. I can't keep up with that anymore. So even when I do a set, maybe the most I'll do now is like 40 or 50. That's the most I'll do. But even some of the other sets, I might do 20. So I can't keep up with those large numbers I did in the beginning.
Do you collect?
I do. I started as a collector back in the 80s, Garbage Pail Kids, and then I went to sports cards late 80s, and that's what my dad and I did for almost 20 years. And so we went to sports shows, and so yeah, I got a pretty good collection of cards.
You do collect cards? Do you collect anything else like those?
Original art. I've got several of the original Garbage Pail Kid paintings over the years. So yeah, I try to do original, and like Jack Davis, the art originals that I've managed to get over the years, and a lot of them old Topps cards. He drew for Topps back in the 60s. A lot of the sets like Funny Valentines, and so I've got a lot of the originals from those sets.
Wait a minute, hold on. So there were sketch cards in the 60s?
No, the original art for the cards.
Oh,
so
oh.
yeah. So I've got the original art that was printed on the sets of cards.
Okay, cool.
Amazing.
Do you collect like stuff that some of those British people collect? Like, what is it, Funko Pops or
Not at all. Not at all. No,
turtles or something? I don't know what. No.
I still occasionally buy cards and try to get mostly original art. That's probably that's what I mostly collect these days.
That's really, really cool. So, do you have any advice for people who are maybe thinking graphic design? That sounds sexy. Can I do that? Do you have any do you have any advice for people who might want to be trying into that in this day and age?
Well, I think if not only design or just art in general, you have to want to do it. You have to really put in the time. And I tell my kids, there's no shortcuts. There's no shortcut from practice. There's no shortcut from putting in the effort to make yourself better. And so that it doesn't matter what you do. And so that would be the biggest advice right there. Excuse me.
Practice.
Yeah, there's no shortcut. There's no magical. There's no class. You can't go to school and go, all right, now I'm an artist. There's no short, and that's for any. It doesn't matter. Musician, cook, whatever. Just practice. That's anything.
Yeah. All right. Do you have? Is there anything that you'd like to add that we have not asked?
Anything you'd like to promote?
Because of the stuff that I'm working on now, I can't really talk about it because I don't think it's been announced. So I hope some of the licensors and the lawyers I hope they are getting in the gear and will make it happen. So a lot of this stuff, maybe in the next year, it'll start coming out. Otherwise, as far as my commit, the only thing else I'm working on is commissions because I took 2 years off because of the comics. I was like, I don't have time for commissions. And so now I'm going back and I've just got a stack of commissions that, I've got dozens that I probably have 25, 30 jobs where I told people, and most of them understand. I'm like, I'm not going to do commissions while I'm doing the comics. And so they're like, all right, okay, you'll get to me one day. And that's what I'm doing now. Finally getting to those jobs that I put aside for 2 years.
Ooh.
Okay. Final question from me. What has been your favorite set that you've not necessarily set, but favorite job that you've worked on so far in your career?
Well, maybe it's recency bias, but the comics were great because literally it was they gave me the script and said go. There was no art direction. There was nothing. Their number one thing was get it to me in 5 weeks because we have a printer waiting, we have distributors waiting, we have people that their schedules is based on me getting the artwork to them, and otherwise it was a writer who would send the script to me and go. It was completely hands off. The first issue was pretty scary because I'm emailing the editor and it's like, please don't make changes here. You've told me there's no changes, but please don't tell me there's something I need to change, after at the very end. But then by 2, he trusts what I'm doing, I like it, go, get it to me on time. And so that was, and I work well that way. I know, it may sound silly, but some people need a lot more guidance. Some people are like, I want it exactly like this. I need you to do it exactly like this, where that kind of kills the job for me, which is kind of why I quit Star Wars sketch cards. I don't want Lucasfilm telling me I got to do this and it's got to look exactly like that. That don't work. So I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. Bye. And so with the comic job, it was really nice because it was me. So all the screw ups are me too, though. Everything's me. So that's probably the most fun I've had in a long time.
someone asked me to do illustrate a book once, and he was dictating to me write down to how many leaves he wanted on a branch, and I just said, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Have your money back. I can't work like that.
Kills any fun in a job, and yeah. So I if I know that away from it, anything that I'm like, I'm thinking they're gonna want a nickel and dime, and I'm like, yeah, that's not for me anymore.
Sounds frivolous, but fun is actually really, really important, because as a visual creator, it comes through. If you can't stand what you're doing, or it's like a punishment to do it or something, it's going to come through, and it's just not going to go well.
Exactly. That's
so when you work on a big project, do you like to do it in order, or do you do whatever you can muster that day, like say the pencils or the inking, or do you jump around, or do you go with a strict process?
Absolutely. Yeah. And when I read the script, it was like, well, this page sounds way more fun, and I may do page 16 first. But I try. I may map it out first, just because I want this. It's got to be legible. You still got to read it. But the initial thing was thumbnails. I'm like, I had to draw little quick thumbnails of how I was going to design the pages and how it was going to read. But otherwise, the art, I jump around. I really did do that, and it was not in order at all.
I think it hinders a lot of people thinking that they have to go in order, start to finish all this order, and but you're not always in the mood to draw one day. You're not always in the mood to ink one day. You're not always in the mood to, like, you have to do whatever you're in the mood for that day, and then eventually, like you said, it all comes together at the end and it's done.
It's definitely a little. You can ask my wife, a little scatterbrained in that for sure.
I think we both understand scatterbrain.
Yeah. Look at my office and see scatterbrain.
Oh my gosh, you should see.
I'm not showing mine. All the messes
I should have blurred mine like you. But I can already tell yours is way more organized than mine.
No, this is not my studio. This is my daughter's room that I borrow for. No. I do not show my studio.
I'm glad you didn't blur it, because we've had this guy in the background keeping us company.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people find you if they want to find out more about you, follow your projects, and all that good stuff?
I have a personal website that, unfortunately, I have got it down so I can add new images like the comic work. Otherwise, I have my personal page on Facebook or my art page on Facebook. So I tell people I post my art on my personal page, but I also have fart jokes. So if you want just art, find my art page. But if you want art and fart jokes, find my personal page.
Personal page finding.
So it's just on Facebook, Jason Crosby, and Jason Crosby Illustration is my art page on Facebook.
Okay, and I'll ask you for the links to your website too. I imagine it will be updated eventually, and we'll post that.
Yes, it's Jason.
Okay, and we'll have some images to put up besides your interview, so people can see the amazing stuff you've been doing. Thank you so much for having come on. This has been amazing. It's been great to get to know you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard to believe we haven't spoken before, and and I've been doing this for 10 years now, cards, and I know you have too.
Well, longer than that. Yeah, we've worked on many sets actually together, but of course, you never see. We're all holed in our little rabbit holes. So.
No, and you're one of I love the painterly what you do, and so I say my brain does not work like that. So when I see something like your work, that I'm like, oh, that's completely different than how I think. That I actually look at that first, because I'm like, oh, I learned something. So than somebody who's doing the same thing I am, in a sense, pen and ink and hatching, and that's what I do. But when I see your work, I immediately have to stop and look at it. So
What
I
I
like
think
it.
is what I think is cool with trading cards, well, trading card sets that include sketch cards and stuff, it's the vast variety of styles and interpretations. I think it's amazing after working on the last set that, Lindsey was part of too, with the dragon set. And then when I'm going through all the art that artists have created on sketch cards, you just look at this big variety of styles. It's amazing. It's cool. It's cool that people are different.
Yeah, very true. And that, I know we're back to this. That's when Lucasfilm took over in 2016. They took away a lot of that variety. And before, like, if you look at Star Wars cards prior to 2016, you had, I know one artist was doing stained glass. It's just fun. Some were doing kind of more cartoonish, and some were doing the ultra realistic, and that's so much variety. Cards after the rules took over in 2016.
You get
variety. That's the spice.
So many repeat references, don't you? I mean, I know it's kind of cool to see them done by different people, but it's the same image over and over and over and over.
And before that, it wasn't based on references. They could do their own little scene, and it was fun.
I'm so gutted I missed out on that era of tops. I'd have loved that. Like, I only started after when you had to do the photorealism.
Yep.
So kind of disappointing, but there you go.
Kitty Erie.
You got to pick some sets that you don't have to. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The Kitty Erie that Lindsey does would have been great in the Star Wars sets. That would have been just.
Yeah, and a lot of that. Yeah, it was. Anyway, that's dredging up old.
There are some smaller companies out there that just love all these different styles.
And
I think Ingrid's trying to headhunt you.
Anyway,
yeah.
It has...
I'm gonna throw a loop and I'll do realistic portraits. That's what I'm gonna throw a curveball and I'll do portraits.
Oh my god. Yeah, so anyway, this has been fabulous to meet you. I hope that we can have you on again when you have something really amazing that you want to share with the world. Please, ring up one of us, and we'll definitely love to have you back on.
All right. Well, thank you. Let me get him. Let's see.
Oh, we're gonna say goodbye to Pooch. What's his name?
Jasper.
Jasper.
Oh, adorable.
Oh, hi, Jasper.
Well, yes. Thank you very much.
Oh,
okay, yes.
Maybe do a card set featuring Jasper.
I've included the wiener dogs in several pieces. I think they were more the editorial that I did years ago. So, a lead walking several wiener dogs. That's happened a few times. Oh, I did do it in Mars Attacks. Yeah, he was. There was been some wiener dogs in Mars Attacks.
Have you ever drawn him as an actual hot dog? The little head sticking out the bun.
I think it was one of the others for Halloween. he was the hot dog and the bun for Halloween.
Oh, so cute. All right.
Well, say goodbye to both of you. Thank you again, and thank you to everyone for watching. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave comments in the area below, whatever it is you call it, and look up those links to Jason Crosby's website and Facebook pages. Thank you so much for having joined us.
Thank you. We will talk again soon.